What if the real reason your father died is because of your connection to a horrible past that you know nothing about? Do you have the courage to face it, or will you run away like a coward? In evidence footage, it is seen that the members of the cult Malum flock, who are worshipping what they call the low god, were with 4 teenage girls. At first, the flock was having fun at the river, but the 4 girls were visibly uncomfortable and scared. Then, everything turned into a night of horrific events as the flock took their poor victims into a barn. In front of the low god's makeshift throne marked with a pentagram, one of the teenage girls was brutally murdered and then fed to a pig while the flock was celebrating. Fortunately, they are eventually stopped by the police, who were led by Captain Will Lauren. However, despite saving the 3 other girls and catching 3 cult members, including their leader, John Malum himself, Will still feels bad for not being able to save everyone. Opening his locker, he sees the newspaper cut out of the article about the successful raid. At this moment, the other police officers give him a round of applause for his heroism, yet he can't seem to celebrate much, so he crumples the paper. Police Officer Price states that the 3 girls are now safe and at home with their family thanks to him. Will, on the other hand, points out that it could have been 4 if he only called it sooner. Hearing that, Price consoles his captain and reasons that he did everything he could. Not long after, the holding area will start hearing a creepy whistling sound to the tune of the Song of the Low God, which is Malum Flock's anthem. Meanwhile, 2 other police officers are talking at the practice range when the female officer's head suddenly blows off. And before the other can react, Will pulls the shotgun's trigger once more. At this time, Will starts shooting anyone he sees until he ends up in one holding cell. When the other officers arrive, he asks them to tell his family that he is sorry and that he loves them. However, what's weirder is when he says that he is safe in the arms of his master, which is a part of Malum's flock whole stick. Just then, Will takes the gun and ends his life, shocking everyone who witnesses it. 1 year has passed, and it is now Jessica, the daughter of Will, who wears the uniform. Before going to the station, she visits her father in the cemetery, where she gets surprised when her mother, Diane, suddenly shows up. By the way Jessica calls her by her name and how they talk to each other, it is evident that the mother and daughter are not in a good relationship. After a while, Jessica leaves without noticing the symbol of the low god painted on the back of her father's headstone. Yet, as it turns out, the low god's symbol is not only found on Will's headstone but all over the town instead. This means that despite John Malum's death, his cult is still very much active. To make matters worse, it is as if they are not trying to hide it, as a bunch of flock members are sitting in front of the new police station, singing their cult's anthem. At the same time, the men of the cult seem to be purposely causing trouble, resulting in the police getting busy for the night. After a while, Jessica finally reaches the old station, where she requested to be assigned to the last shift. There, she meets a rude police officer named Grip Cohen. Trying to break the awkward atmosphere between them, Jessica tells Cohen that she went by the new station and noticed that the other officers were occupied. Hearing that, Cohen immediately realizes that she is talking about the flock. He believes that it is the flock's way of showing rebellion after they took down their leader about a year ago. Cohen then takes her to her desk and explains that calls have been rerouted to the new station already, so she should be free of trouble during her shift. Yet, he reminds her that if anyone comes asking for help, she needs to send them to the new station. Cohen also leaves his number if in any case Jessica needs it. Afterward, he questions why Jessica picked the last shift, to which she answers that it is the same as her father's. And upon learning that she is Will's daughter, he tells her that her father killed 2 of his friends in the force. In turn, Jessica says that she just wants to work peacefully, so Cohen decides to leave her alone. But before he goes, he reminds her to stay out of the holding area. Not long after, when Cohen is gone, Jessica hears the elevator rings, yet it doesn't open. At this time, she sees the station's floor plan and uses it to locate the locker room. There she notices that the only locker that was locked is her father's. She tries to look for something to open the lock, but she's interrupted when she hears water splashing from the shower room. But as Jessica goes to check on it, she then hears a ball bouncing from the hallway. Thinking that it's just Officer Cohen, she tries to follow the noise into the gym, where she suddenly sees a silhouette that's watching over her. Scared, she quickly turns the light on, yet she sees no one. Just then, the bell rings and she finds a homeless man waiting outside the station. He seems to lose his sanity because of losing his daughter, so Jessica offers to call a shelter for him. But to her surprise, the homeless man just pisses on the door and leaves. After cleaning the man's mess, Jessica finds a bolt cutter, so she goes back to her father's locker to open it. When it doesn't do any good, she tries the fire extinguisher next but still fails. At this time, Jessica hears the phone ringing and gets back to her desk immediately. However, it turns out to be a prank call, so she warns the woman on the other line to stop before she orders her arrest. Yet, the woman continues taunting her. Because of that, Jessica calls the new station to report the prank call. Unfortunately, the officer from the other line states that they're too busy to deal with prank calls. Pissed, she goes back to the locker and just shoots the lock down. Inside her father's locker is nothing but a crumpled newspaper in their photo. Yet, upon looking closely, she sees a secret compartment and finds a hidden box. As she checks its content, Jessica finds all the files and evidence that had something to do with the Malum Phlox case. Shortly, she hears a pig snorting and discovers that somebody indeed left an animal outside the station. Due to that, Jessica calls it to the news station again and asks what she needs to do. The officer tells her to just let it be, but Jessica still gets outside to take the pig. At this point, she confirms that it's from the flock as the symbol of the low god is painted on the animal's back. But what's creepier is that the animal is named Betty, which is the same name as the girl that was killed and fed to the pig before the police arrived. After putting the pig in an empty room, Jessica hears clattering noises from the other room as if somebody is breaking inside the station. When she checks on it, she finds the homeless man holding the evidence bag that contains Betty's sandals. It is then revealed that the homeless man is the poor victim's father who went insane after the tragic death of her daughter. He tries to attack Jessica, so she has no other choice but to stun and arrest him. But as she puts him in a holding cell, she gets locked inside as well as the door closes in itself. Jessica uses her radio to call for help, but to her horror, all she hears is a creepy voice. Suddenly, the homeless man charges at her, causing her to drop her flashlight. Then, it seems like the man has picked it up and lights it on her. However, it suddenly shifts the light from her to the homeless man, meaning that somebody aside from the two of them is holding it. Because of that, she starts panicking and screaming for help. Suddenly, the flashlight rolls over to her, and as she picks it up, 3 dead bodies drop from the ceiling. Weirdly enough, the door behind her is now open, so she immediately gets out and locks it so the homeless man stays inside. After that, Jessica calls Cohen and tells him about what happened. In turn, he scolds her for violating his order not to get into the holding area and says that it's full of black mold that makes people hallucinate. With that, Cohen states that he will be sending a unit to take the homeless man and that she should just stick to doing her job. Afterward, she goes on to clean the mess that the homeless man made. At this time, Jessica sees a photograph of a relic that looks like the symbol of the low god. As she reads about it, it is revealed that the low god was a pre-biblical demonic deity. Aside from that, she also finds a hard drive that contains all the footage about the Malum Phlox case. Because of that, Jessica picks up her laptop at the mobile where she sees a hostess getting kicked out of a car. Seeing that, she decides to help the woman and treats her wound inside the station. When the woman notices that Jessica is alone, she comments that she shouldn't be alone in the station. At first, Jessica thinks that the hostess is talking about the shooting incident. But as the woman clarifies, she was in the next cell where John Malum and his 2 flock members were locked up 1 year ago. According to her, they were so proud of killing Betty and their other victims before her, yet they ended up hanging themselves that same night. However, her story time is interrupted when she seems to be seeing something outside the room that makes her really scared. As she shakes in fear, the woman swears that she will not say anything more. Then she begins to recite some prayers for the low god and shrieks loudly. Suddenly, she just gets back to her old self as if nothing happens. Because of that, Jessica tells her that she needs to leave immediately. When the woman is gone, the phone rings again, and right after knowing that it's the same prank caller, she quickly hangs up. However, the woman calls once more and says that she will kill her hostages if Jessica hangs up on her again. As it turns out, the flock kidnapped again the 3 teenage girls that her father rescued before. Due to that, Jessica asks her what she wants, to which the woman says she doesn't want anything, but John Malum does. In turn, Jessica points out that John is already dead, yet the woman is implying that he's still alive. Before ending the call, she hints that Jessica's father started something very important and that they at Malum Flock will finish it this very night. Curious about what the woman said about her father starting something, Jessica plugs in a hard drive and starts reviewing the different footage. At first, she watches how Betty begged for her life while the flock took pride in what they did as they told her that her soul will be food for their god. Overwhelmed, Jessica stops for a while, just in time for Diane to call her. But as they talk on the phone, a video suddenly continues playing where the flock started singing after bashing Betty's head off. Hearing that, Diane asks what she is doing and orders her to turn it off. However, Jessica can't turn it off no matter what she does. And, to her horror, the footage changes into somebody's point of view behind her. In the video, she throws the box on the ground, so she checks on it and sees a target practice paper where the word "still here" is written. Because of that, Jessica goes to the practice range where she gets haunted by what seems to be the ghost of John. Terrified, she tries to get away, but the station turns out to be chained and locked from the outside, meaning that she's trapped. Left with no other choice, she goes back to the desk and calls the new station for help. Jessica also wants to give up, stating that she cannot do it anymore. Yet, the officer from the other line convinces her that she's the only hope of the 3 girls because she's the only one that the flock is calling. He then assures her that they will send a team to come and get her. However, as she tries to calm down, she gets distracted when the song on the Low God starts playing everywhere. At this point, the video of John and his 2 flock members' arrest plays on a laptop. But even after getting caught, they showed no remorse at all as they truly believed that the Low God was with them. However, what catches Jessica's attention the most is the footage where Will was interrogating John and her father saw something that made him silent. Upon checking his body camera, the footage caught a reflection of a demonic creature that seems to be the Low God. Suddenly, somebody puts a pillowcase on her head and grabs her. Then, she finds herself in a wheeled stretcher along with the dead body of John and his 2 flock members who just outed themselves. It is as if she goes back to the past and witnesses as they got possessed back to life. At this time, more flock members show up and kill the doctor, eventually taking their bodies. After that, she finally finds herself back to reality. Also, Officer Price and Officer Hudson arrive to take the homeless man and get Jessica out of the station. As Hudson goes to the homeless man, Jessica asks Price what truly happened to her father. According to him, Will watched the interrogation over and over as he kept on saying that he saw something until he ultimately lost it. And before he went on a rampage, he told Price not to go into the holding area. Afterward, he shows Jessica the very shotgun that her father used that unfortunate night. However, upon putting it back, Price goes back with his face blown up as Jessica sees her father point the shotgun at her. Just then, she finds herself in a barn, watching John Malum baptize her as a baby using his own blood under the name of the Low God. It is then revealed that Diane was once a member of Malum flock. At this moment, Jessica wakes up and hears the homeless man screaming and begging to let him out. Inside the cell, Hudson seems to be holding him at gunpoint while they both recite a prophecy about a woman with a greater purpose to serve the Low God. After Jessica lets him go, the homeless man comes across the room where Betty the pig is. What's weirder is that he starts hearing his daughter calling for help. With that, the homeless man gets into the room, yet the pig, later on, goes out while chewing something. It then goes to Jessica, but as she looks at the animal, she suddenly sees Betty's ghost and it starts attacking her. Freaked out, Jessica runs away and hides, but she eventually shoots the ghost and it goes back to being a pig. Shortly, Diane arrives at the station and scolds her daughter for not telling her that she will be working at the old station. In turn, Jessica confronts her and asks the truth about her involvement with the flock. Busted, she admits that she ran away from Will when she was pregnant with her because John found her. He told her that Jessica will be a part of something big, so she believed him. But upon giving birth to her, Diane started seeing things, so she got away from the flock and Will luckily saved them. Yet, as if they were in a loop, John found them once again. She says that John had a plan, so Jessica asks what it is. At this time, Diane starts seeing and hearing Will, so she follows his voice. Meanwhile, Jessica hears a woman screaming, so she tells her mother to stay put while she checks on it. Arriving at the gym, she finds out that the flock is already inside the situation as one of them holds her hostage at gunpoint. As it turns out, it is the same woman talking to her on the phone, and she just casually shoots the young girl, resulting in Jessica gunning her down as well. But to her terror, more flock members emerge from the darkness and start chasing her. Trapping them inside the gym using a handcuff, Jessica runs back to her mother, only to find her missing. At this time, the phone rings and it's the officer from the new station. According to him, the flock is planning to raid the old station, so they will be sending a team to help her. However, the officer asks if Diane is still with her, despite her not telling him about it. It is then revealed that the one talking to Jessica all this time is John Malum himself, as the telephone line had been cut all along. She asks where her mother is, but John doesn't answer. Instead, he just declares that the Low God will finally come tonight. After that, Jessica is attacked by the homeless man, who turns out to be possessed after getting killed by Betty the pig. Left with no other choice, she has to kill him again as the flock members finally get out of the gym. Mustering up all her courage, she faces them head-on, but she just witnesses how they brutally murdered their 2 other hostages. She tries to save them as much as she can, but with greater power involved, her determination is proven to be useless. Jessica also sees Will, but it is a ghost that is supposed to trick her. With that, she moves along and gets her father's shotgun after her service pistol runs out of bullets. Following where the sound of the song is coming from, Jessica arrives at the basement where the two flock members, who were arrested with John, are waiting for her. But what surprises her more is that the Low God's throne is now located in the basement, explaining all the horrors that are happening on the station. Just then, Jessica discovers that John is still alive and is looking more demonic now. To make matters worse, she is now cornered by both the dead and the living as she sees the flock members and the dead police officers that her father killed standing all together. Shortly, they all give way as the Low God, a demonic deity with a pentagram for a face, indeed arrives. As it walks towards her, everyone starts chanting that her soul will feed the demon. Jessica starts shooting it, but it does nothing to the Low God. At this moment, John shrieks as the Low God's pentagram face suddenly attaches to Jessica. But she's confused as to why she's standing in the hallway now. There, she gets to face John, who is now possessed by the Low God, whom she immediately shoots. However, it is revealed that the one he shot is not Low God John but Diane instead. Realizing what she has done, Jessica breaks down crying. And to add insult to what happens, the flock members and dead officers show up to laugh and mock her while she is mourning the death of her mother. Then, Low God John whispers something in her ears, causing her to pick up the gun and kill herself as well, causing everyone to give her a round of applause. The movie ends with Jessica being dragged back to the basement as she gets back to life while sitting on her own throne beside Low God John. The movie Malum is indeed a really great horror movie. It's a real treat for horror fans as it didn't rely too much on jump scares just to say that it is scary. With a simple plot, they managed to create a mind-tripping psychological horror, which makes it one of the best horror movies that were released so far this 2023. Overall, Malum is a highly recommended film that will not disappoint every horror fan.